also to help you and support you the initiative of WynActive and Women's City. Welcome. Great to have you back for this WynActive webcast, and I tell you what, we've got another exciting one for you. My name's Barry Harrison. I'm from WynActive, and I'm going to introduce again my partner in crime, James Robertella. Hi, James.
G'day, Barry. Thanks for having us on again. Excited to be here again, and we've got another wonderful guest, and has a rich history here in Wyndham, and many of you are certainly aware of the Werribee Football Club, and we're very fortunate enough to have Mark Penaluna on and joining us here. And I'd like to welcome Mark to our Wyndham webcasts.
Oh, thanks for having us, James and Barry. Happy to be part of the program.
Brilliant.
Mark, you've been around Werribee Football Club and Wyndham for a long time. You don't need to tell us a number of years.
I can tell you my first day was September 23, 2003.
Well, there you go. So we're coming up for 17 years in September.
Yeah. They haven't thrown me out yet.
They might have tried. No, only joking. So what was your first role there? Because you're the CEO now.
Just the role just changed from the title being general manager to become CEO. The previous 5 years, I was general manager of the Western Region Football League.
Yes, yeah.
Prior to that, in a football sense, I was a volunteer at a club for many years. After working at Telstra for 14 years.
Very good. What was VFL footy back like then, Mark? In 2003.
2003, we were into our third year of a full alignment with the Western Bulldogs. So Peter Rode was the coach of the Western Bulldogs. Stephen Newport, ex-Melbourne player, was the football manager. Both different guys. Stephen very intelligent, analytical type, but very, very honest sort of guy as well. So VFL has changed a hell of a lot. At that stage, our turnover was 650K, and we're now turning over a bit over 2 million. So in a lot of ways, it has changed.
It's a big organisation and a big thing to run a VFL club. That's for sure. It's not cheap, and a lot of people don't realise how much money it takes just to even run a local football club.
Absolutely, a lot of money, a lot of good people, and that's what it comes back to: working with good people and recognising those. The other big change for us is particularly competing now against many more standalone AFL clubs, and how do we do that and deliver and particularly compete.
Yeah, I'm sure. You mentioned you were involved with the local clubs before, Mark. Which one was that?
I was with Port Colts in Port Melbourne. Grew up as a Port Melbourne boy. Played for Port Colts as a junior, then spent 3 years at Port Melbourne. Went back with the Colts. I was secretary there for 8 years, and then we won 2 premierships that year, the seniors and reserves. And at the end of that year, I was made general manager of the Western Region Footy League.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, yeah. Good stuff. So we'll talk a little bit more later about the Werribee Football Club, because I know you guys are doing some great stuff, and I've only been involved with you really the last six months, Mark, but it looks like you've got a great future. We'll talk about that a bit later, but we want to know a little bit about you and how you're doing in these difficult times. And we normally start off about what are you grateful for, looking at the positives. What are you grateful for at the moment?
Well, I'm grateful that I've got an understanding wife who at the moment is controlling our 2 dogs while I'm trying to do this from home. So if you hear the occasional bark, you'll know what it is. But what I'm grateful for is actually the people in it, whether it's my family, as I said, my extended family, my wife, and also the people associated with the club. And you learn a lot about people in these sort of situations. And I tried to use the analogy in talking to my wife a couple of weeks ago and said, in football parlance, you learn more from people when you lose than when you win. Yes. Anyone can get a kick when you're 20 goals up, It's when you're 3 goals down, you're trying to win the game. You work out who can actually play or not. And it's similar here. Who's gonna rise? Who's going to show empathy and do things beyond the call? Is, as I said, you learn a lot from our people. And I've tried to also talk to particularly the younger staff that in this time when you'll go for a job interview in 2, 5, 10 years, refer to this period. How did you show initiative and think outside the box so as you hopefully get that job that you're really looking for?
Oh, fantastic. All right, James, your turn. So, Mark, what happens every time is James and I have to say what we're grateful for as well. And,
okay.
Yeah. So, but that was great. And I love the footy analogy that you talked about. And you're right. When you're well ahead, it's easy. But it's when you're those few goals behind. And are you going to work? Are you going to push? Are you willing to step up? Or are you prepared to work to step up? I loved it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
No, and I think further to that, that team element is really strong and something that I'm very grateful for at the moment. We're fortunate enough to be working in a really close-knit team at the Wyndham City Council in the Sport and Recreation Department, and fortunate enough to be interacting with Barry and also with Mark on a regular basis, and the footy clubs and the soccer clubs and the sports clubs out there in Wyndham that I know are facing some tough times at the moment. But very grateful for the ability to work in a team environment at the moment and being able to connect with that team. I think there's a great opportunity now that we're finding where we can chase those new ideas and find out how new and innovative ways around supporting our clubs. So when we see the end of this time, we'll be able to bounce back, hopefully bigger and stronger. But there's a bit of water to go under the bridge. But yeah, very grateful for the team element. I think that links back into to Mark's sentiments about footy and sport.
Yeah, absolutely.
I shot a note back to Cam and Atkins and Tom and the rest of the guys today. You absolutely do a really, really good job. You show empathy. You want to work with clubs. And trust me, James, when I do speak to Kelly and others, I do give you guys a pump up. I might give you a hard time behind closed doors occasionally, but certainly, you guys do a really good job.
Yeah, no, much appreciated. But yeah, the sports clubs and the fitness groups out there, they're the face of the community. So we're there to support them. But what about yourself, Barry? Like, throwing back at you, what are you grateful for today?
Well, I was going to say Lego Masters because that's I've got into that, which has surprised me enormously. I can't believe it. Right. But it's getting exciting at the moment. But after what you said, and as I was listening to you, Mark, it made me appreciate also the team that I work with at WynActive. We've changed our business over the last few weeks, and we manage leisure centre stadiums and a pool. That's what we do. We run programs. Now we're a community support organisation through putting up our videos, through doing things like that. Through contacting people and just saying, hey, are you okay? And we've contacted hundreds and hundreds of our members just to say, hey, how are you going? Are you okay? So I'm really grateful for that. And that just came from what you were talking about, Mark, and also you reinforced it, James, about being part of a team and working together. But we've been able to actually change what we do, and it's been a great experience to do that.
Yeah.
So, fantastic discussion, and thanks for leading that, Mark. But so, how are you coping with this social isolation? What are you doing? What strategies do you do to survive? You're at home most of the time. You're saying you're down the club earlier today, but how are you coping?
Well, I do tend to go down the club 3 or 4 times a week for 2 or 3 hours at a time, just making sure things are okay, using a photocopy or those sorts of bits and pieces to keep things ticking over. It did make me reflect a little bit that previously, and you won't believe this, James, but when I had my daughter, I took 6 months off work to look after my daughter when my wife went back to work. Now, 25 years ago.
You didn't take any time off, did you, Mark?
I actually had long service leave with half pay. So,
Right.
and I just thought then at that stage, my wife went back to work. No mobile phone, no Foxtel, no Netflix, and trying to be that do stuff from home, albeit volunteering from a club administrator, and it really sent me loopy. And I don't know how people do it, staying home, looking after their kids, and to where we are now to Barry, as you're saying, your staff being agile and come up with new ideas, having these sorts of meetings. I didn't even know Zoom existed until 4 weeks ago. So you're lucky to get a teleconference with me, let alone have a Zoom meeting. So that's sort of how, the evolution of myself. But going for a walk at 4 o'clock every day and taking the dogs for a walk in daylight rather than doing it at 10 o'clock at night. And sometimes it makes you reflect that, you're currently working sometimes upwards of 60 hours a week, thinking, well, is there a better way of doing this as well? So I think a lot of people think like that as well. The old work-life balance needs to be thought for a bit more carefully than what I was doing anyway.
Yeah, no, I think your commentary around that, finding that time every day at 4 o'clock is really important, and trying to keep a routine. And I think we've talked about routine on these podcasts, webcasts in the past, Barry, and reinforcing that is great to hear, Mark, because that's the sort of messaging that we're wanting to get across as well.
Exactly right, and it's a matter of we're together, James and I, which is Wyndham City and WynActive, are pushing out a campaign called Find Your 30, but do it your way. So it's about 30 minutes of activity, and it is about being active, because it is all too easy to sit on the couch at your desk all day and not do anything. So, the routine with that exercise is very important. I'd agree, for sure. Good stuff. So, Mark, Werribee Football Club, how are you coping? What are you doing at the moment? But also, what are your plans? Where are you going?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's I'll go back and give it some context. The staff, we first met just over 5 weeks ago and said, as a group, look, this is on the horizon. We think this is how it's all going to play out. So brought them all together and talked through it, how it might evolve. But clearly, no one really understood from then to where we are now. The social distancing rules and all sorts of things that has since been applied. So since then, like everyone, we've had to work through understanding the different government stimulus packages, how that's worked. The government put these things out, we don't really know, for a week or so. But in between time, like you guys as managers, you've got to work with the people. You've got to try and explain to them as best you can. They've got their own challenges with mortgages and kids and whatever else. And that was the hardest thing I found, that normally where I just pull up next to someone at the desk and have a chat and provide really good context of what I'm trying to explain. But doing that remotely with all the apprehension that's going on the other side over the first 3 or so weeks, that was the hardest part of my job. Although there's the other part of this, the purely fiscal situation and the business, where you've gone from having several income streams from your function room and education space, entertainment venue, sponsorship, match day, you name it, they're all gone. So, as I said, the human element is the hardest part that I found at that time, and it still is, how to manage people remotely. And in talking to one of my staff members, they felt a little embarrassed that they're coming back to work on JobKeeper, and this is one of the youngest staff members, and theoretically they're working 4 days a week. They're saying, well, I haven't got 4 days a week work. Well, I said, well, I'm not expecting you to work 4 days. You'll if it's 1 day 1 week and it's 3 the next, then that's great. This is about you and trying to sit down and think outside the box, what you can do for the club, but also what can you do for yourself. So managing all those things has been pretty difficult, but I dare say that's the same, the world over, really.
Absolutely. What about for the 2020 season? You're obviously in that funny place where you've got to prepare for something that may or may not happen at some indeterminate time.
Yeah. Once again, I've gone to each of the staff and said, well, you've got to look at 2 different things here. the season might start in 4 or 5 weeks. You've got to have your to-do list. What are we got to do to jump and run and make sure we can deal with that? Similarly, if there's no games, what are some of the projects we might be able to work on so we're going to be better as a club? So 2020, we're obviously waiting. The government will dictate to us about what can happen, particularly in the AFL. And then from the AFL and what they do will then flow onto us. If we have a 2020 season in the VFL, it may be unlikely whether the AFL clubs will be participating in ours. There's so much they've got to work through, whether it's hubs, how many guys play, the game's been played every 4 or 5 days, carryovers, all these sorts of things, which might mean that there might be a lesser sort of competition, I suppose, of the standalone clubs plus some of the others, the Sandringhams and these things. These are all the debates that are going on around between the VFL clubs and who we catch up weekly with, and we also catch up with the AFL every Friday. So I would expect that we'll know whether we're going to have a season in the next 3 or 4 weeks. It obviously be compromised, and it might be as little as 10 games. And I'm currently working on 3 different budgets. One with no games, one with games with no crowds, and one with games and crowds. And then within that, you've got a whole set of assumptions as well. So, so people like myself, I'm being paid 2 days a week to work at the moment. Mark Williams and Stuart Ballick, who are football manager, football coach, they're the same. And the rest of our staff, who are a community manager, diversity manager, membership, etc., they're all on JobKeeper. So I'm very lucky that the staff understand it, and no doubt we'll come out bigger and strong on the other side, hopefully in the 2020 season, if not 2021.
Have you seen any ways in which the staff have bonded across this time, Mark? And maybe that might come from the players or the staff or directives from anyone in particular.
I think our players have been amazing. I used to get into trouble with sending emails out after 9 o'clock at night, so I changed my habits as best I could not to do that. But now those people having to go at me about sending emails after hours, I'm getting 84 WhatsApp messages between 9 o'clock at night and midnight, because we've got all these different WhatsApp groups going on, coaches and players, and we've got welfare groups, we've got a young leadership group. It's amazing what our coaches, our welfare guys, our sports psych, our doctors, players, how they've all come together is just incredible. And it's obviously some of the funny stuff that these guys are doing at home, golf balls and whatever else, but they're sharing motivational videos, how-to drills. I know that we've sent our community department has shared some stuff about what they're doing. They're going to be doing for schools and local clubs around some tutorials and things like that. So I've been, as I said, incredibly impressed by what our guys have all done as a collective.
It sounds like you've got a really strong group there, and I think if you can keep that together, you will come out, as you said, James, a lot stronger, Mark, and certainly fingers crossed for it. Assuming we do come out of this and you come out and you have a normal season next season, and from next season on, like, I know you've got some plans, but what are those plans? Where do you think Werribee Football Club is going? It's not an easy marketplace that you're in.
No, it's not. We want to be the most professional, successful Australian rules football club outside the AFL. We've worked mightily hard together with partners, council and our sponsors to get to the situation. As I said, we've tripled our turnover. We've got probably the best facilities in the VFL at the moment. We want to continue to look at that and improve those facilities. We want to match the growth in the Wyndham area and continue to support our community organisations, in particular Australian Rules Footy Club. So we currently tip in cash and contra $240,000 to the local area, and we're looking to extend that, albeit very challenging times that we're currently dealing with. So we do need to review that at the other end.
Absolutely.
It's certainly our ambition to continue to do all the things we are currently doing.
Fantastic. Well, Mark, thanks very much. Sorry, James, did you have something?
No, I was just going to say, I think Mark's put it really eloquently. The layers that a VFL club.
Sorry, James, can I quote you? Can I quote you? You say that I presented something eloquently. Can I?
I think you did. In our short time together, that
thanks, mate.
We're here and we're trying to to present in a professional manner. But you've done so, and
thanks,
look, I think it just it just highlights the various layers that are at a VFL club, and Wyndham, we're fortunate enough to have the Werribee Football Club in our wonderful community. But like all the other clubs, it's important that we can try and support sport to come back bigger and stronger. But appreciate your time and efforts, and do wish you all the best across these coming weeks and months. And we'll be in touch soon, I'm sure.
Thank you, James. We're very, very happy and continue to support the city of Wyndham and everyone within it.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, James.
Boys.
Have a great one.
Thanks,
I'm
Barry.
sure we'll all talk soon. And stay tuned, everyone, for more WynActive webcasts very soon.
Thanks, boys.